Welcome, Adventure. I'm GM Goblin, your GM Goblin. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to make a custom race. And we are going to be making Asura from Guild Wars 2. So stick around, and remember, like, subscribe, and let's get after it. So the reason I'm picking this is because I've started playing a MMO recently, and my son has been talking about wanting to get into playing a Pathfinder game. Well, he was thinking about playing it, so I figured I would start making the races from the game and allow him to pick something else that he's interested in to play for a tabletop and maybe keep him on it longer than one session. But regardless, let's take a look at the Creating New Races page. You can find this, we're on D20 PFSRD, and these rules are fairly common. I think I've talked about them before in some of my other videos, but whenever you're creating new races, you're going to be something called race points, RP points. Most of your base races are actually along the lines of 1 to 10. And so when you're looking at the race page on PFSRD, you'll see they're broke down into 1 through 20 races, which normally all GMs are pretty fine with adding them to any of your players, NPCs and stuff. And then you've got the 11 to 20. Sometimes we'll do that. I'm usually pretty good with it. And then you have the more advanced ones. They are definitely monstrous races. They get all the way up to your Drow nobles, and then all the way over to the Wei Yang. There is things like the Kitsune in here, which has a constant ability to morph themselves. So they get some magical powers that really bump them up. So to see why there's a difference between, say, a human and something like a Kitsune, why don't we go ahead and take a look at this page? So, as you can see, they start off by explaining what you're looking at. There are 6 categories for your racial qualities, which is going to be your subtype, size, speed, ability scores, languages. But it's also going to go into what you're going to run into if you use something with a higher level like this, an RP level. At what level? So the idea is that as you advance, the little things that make your class more powerful at a low level diminishes. So you have your average RP, and it goes by 20, 30, and 40. And it tells you the level adjustment for your character. So if a Kitsune is 20 RP and you play it as a level 1 character, and you're at least going to be technically a level 2 character, because your abilities outshine that a level 1 character has. The same thing as you can see on this table advances you all the way up through 40 RP, and then it shows that as you level, by the time you reach basically each quarter in your game, running 1 through 20, that it's going to diminish to the point that it doesn't matter anymore. And then, of course, something like the Kitsune, by the time you reach level 4 or 5, it doesn't matter anymore. Way that I did this, though none of my players have ever used this rule in Pathfinder, the way I did it in 3.5 is I would allow them to gain more experience as they leveled, so that in a level or two, they would actually catch up at being a lower level. So if you were level 1, party was level 2, then I would just allow you eventually to remove that level adjustment, so that you weren't at a detriment. Because if you were 20 RP, by the time you're hitting 15, no one cares, and your racial bonuses are basically tossed out by 1,000 gold magical item. But you've got trait maximums for you for traits. That should be another video. And then it breaks down your concept and everything. It's pretty long list, in all honesty. But when you look at like your racial qualities, like aberrations, constructs, these types that you're going to add to your character, you notice things like the construct, which automatically it's a 20 RP. The reason is because of all the different bonuses, immunities that they get. So they've tried to really keep this up. Taking a look at things like undead, which I'm a big fan of for undead, but giving just undead to a player is going to give them a lot of immunities right from the get-go. They're immune to all bleed effects. They're immune to all death effects, disease, paralysis, everything that affects. They don't need to breathe, anything like that. it just gives, especially at low levels, since it's only 16 RP, at low levels, it just gives them a ton of immunities that is going to outshine normal characters. I need to see if I can get all my players one time to do something funky and everyone run like 20 RP characters or plus, but we'll see if that ever happens. They're pretty basic. But you can see that there is a breakdown also in RP for your size quality because large gives you bonuses. I mean, yes, your 1 AC easier to hit because of the size penalty, but your combat maneuvers get up. You have increased reach. This, by going large, also gives you an additional size penalty to your dex and then a bonus to your strength. So changing that is going to add bonuses. And if you look, medium, most common because everyone plays it almost, but you've also got your short kings here, which the reason they're a 0 RP is because they don't lose any of their actual reach. And then they gain an AC, even though they lose some things like combat maneuverability. So it's okay. Normally they are also slower, but not all the times. But as you go through, it walks you through every step to create a race. And instead of having to run through this one at a time and do it, I figure, since we're going to be making the Asura, when I think of them, I think of another short king from the first world, and that's going to be our gnomes. Gnomes are basically a 10 RP, so your standard races for your classes. And so they're short, they have decreased movement speed, which actually is a negative RP. Their small size is free. Their ability modifiers is a positive to a +2, or a positive to a physical stat, positive to a mental stat, and then a negative to a physical stat. This keeps in your balance where it is a 0 RP adjustment. And then you've got things like your defense, which is going to give you a 2 RP adjustment, and then your feat and racial skills that you get is a 4 RP adjustment, and then the magical racial trait for gnomes, that's going to be 2 RPs, and then the hatred, which is the offensive racial trait, is what it's called, is going to be a +1. So that's how a gnome breaks down. But I don't want to make just a gnome. So what I did was looking at the gnome and how it breaks down. This is what I just read to you. I thought about how I wanted to do this class. And so you have your base, which is going to be your small, your base speed, which according to this list is going to keep you at 30. Goblins do it, so it's cool. And so you've still got your 30 movement. You've got your standard ability, so +2 to mental, physical, -2 to a physical. There you go. And then languages are not a big deal. They don't get any bonuses outside of what a normal race would get, because everyone gets more in common. And then what do we want to do with them? Well, we have some of our skills over here, or some of our traits that we can add up to 10 or close to it. And so you've got like your dark vision. There's 3. And then we want them to be masters when it comes to engineering and alchemy. And so we're going to be doing that because these guys are the technologically advanced kind of characters. They're very much like the gnomes from World of Warcraft. So, and that makes up 7. So we're mostly there. And then let's give them a bonus for illusions and spell effects. And then let's finish it off with a weapon familiarity. And you can throw in something funny like gauntlet maze or something weird like that, or a wrench. And then they use it as a club. So it's an easy thing when you look through something like this, and you can pull out all of them onto like a whiteboard, which is what this is. And then you can just put the pieces in place and see what your level adjustment is. Now, there are some things like rivals that gives you a negative to your RP. Like we covered with the slow speed, which is what gnomes have. It gives them a -1 to their RP because they move at 20. This thing, which gives them a negative to their diplomacy against whatever the race is going to be a -2 to the RP because it impacts them throughout the game. And then, of course, you have magic, which everyone loves to add magic to a character. Something like shadow travel, 5 RP. But you also has prerequisites for it. So outsider, native to the shadow plane, which means you're going to have to add to its RP again. There it is at 3 RP. And so this, having prerequisites, stacking it up to being level 8, just this and that for an RP, which really limits you on what you're able to get. But with this, you're getting additional spells. So once a day, you can do something like Shadow Walk, and it's used as a spell-like ability, which generally means it's going off your charisma. And then also you get one a day, either plane shift or shadow plane or something like that. So these are things that you can pull from this list and use a whiteboard or something and make your own race, whether it wants to be Yoda or something else. So either way, that's just a simple breakdown for how the races work. It's extremely easy once you realize that all you're doing, if you want to make a base power level race, is plugging in things. But if you have races like a Kitsune, and maybe it's almost perfect, only it's a little bit different, or you want to make a new alternate race. So you're maybe going to make something that is specific about either a Kitsune or an Asuma or something. You can go back to this list and you can see what they've done, like with the gnome, and you can see, okay, well, they need to have this speed. So we're going to change this to 30, which is going to take and add an RP. So then they're 11. And if you want to do something like their racial magic, that's 2 RP just for that. So, oops. It's an easy way for you to modify, create your own special version of an elf, because for some reason everyone's got them, or a gnome or anything else, or go ahead and make you something completely different all your own. It's not always balanced, but they've done a good attempt at trying to do it themselves. Either way, enjoy the game, go out there, roll some dice, and maybe make you some new races. Enjoy.